I am a molecular parasitologist. First of all, I am a biochemist, but I specialize in molecular parasitology, and I have a special interest in neglected tropical diseases like onchocerciasis, African trypanosomiasis, lymphatic filariasis, dengue, leishmaniasis, and I mean NTDs in general. And I am a faculty at the Africa Center for Excellence in Neglected Tropical Diseases and Forensic Biotechnology. And our interest is basically in NTDs, to research on these neglected diseases that affect our people and see how we can ameliorate their suffering, basically. So my research is focused on the use of molecular tools, for diagnosis of these diseases, and also I use molecular tools to understand transmission cycles of these diseases between the mammalian host and the insect vector. I also monitor the gene expression patterns to understand the roles that these parasites or these genes play in the survival of the parasites in the host. And so basically that is what my research is about. And recently I'm trying to use artificial intelligence, for diagnosis of these parasites. So in principle, this is what my research is focused on. I am involved in teaching. So I am a faculty at the Department of Biochemistry at Ahmadu Bello University, and also a team member of the Africa Center for Excellence in Neglected Tropical Diseases and Forensic Biotechnology. So the center is a World Bank funded project which is housed by the Department of Biochemistry. And the Department of Biochemistry has several programs. So we have undergraduate as well as graduate programs. And we have the bachelor's in biochemistry, we have master's, PhD in biochemistry, we have biotechnology programs that are run by the Africa Center for Excellence, and then we also have forensic biotechnology, which is basically a diploma program. And then we have the nutrition, master's and PhD nutrition, and also the diploma program for the nutrition. So I am involved in teaching students, postgraduate students, for the master's and PhD in biotechnology, and also bachelor's, master's, and PhD in biochemistry. I went to Carlos III Institute, and there I was able to learn the techniques, for detection of Leishmania species, to understand the dynamics, to understand the mechanism of action of the disease. And I mean, the institute is actually quite interesting because there are quite a number of people who are working in other areas of NTDs. So there's a unit called the parasitology unit, which has different sections, different researchers working on different areas or different interests. And so besides working on leishmaniasis, I also took interest in working on toxoplasmosis. I took interest in working in malaria, and also in dengue, because there are experts working in those fields. I think the interest didn't just come like that. I made a presentation, and they saw that there is a potential basically in Nigeria for such researches to be conducted. So what we have planned to do is to have a kind of network between Spanish and African scientists. And so we can have, we can exchange ideas, we can have collaborations, we can run projects, we can have student exchanges, because it's something similar that I am doing in Germany with the University of Bremen. So we have Erasmus Plus Mobility, where we have students moving from Nigeria to Germany and students or staff from Germany to Nigeria. And this basically helps us in conducting activities like summer schools, workshops, and trainings. So we intend to do the same at the Carlos Tercero Institute. It's not very easy to be a woman. It's not easy to be an African woman scientist. And I tell you why. Because the system, sadly, is plagued, I would say, or perpetuates gender inequality. You know, you have microaggressions, sometimes you have outright discrimination of women. Now, it's unfortunate that our environment perpetuates gender inequality, and there's this subtle but yet pervasive culture of silence in Africa, where it is, it's emphasized in the home, in schools, at the workplace, by religious institutions, the society in general, and women are expected to be quiet. Sometimes women are outrightly told to be quiet. And, you speak less, you act less, you do less. The less you do, the better you're seen as a woman. Now, on the flip side, women who speak out are usually discredited, they are stigmatized, or they are intimidated. So this only limits any woman from reaching her true potential. And it's even worse when women do these things to women. Now, in the academic environment or research institutions where I fall, it's the same problem. So by extension, what we see in society is what is happening in our institutions. So it's not any different. We are usually overlooked, we are usually silenced, especially in important decision-making processes. You cannot, there are times you cannot speak because you are a woman, And I could say this could be as a result of maybe lack of mentors, or role models that can change the narrative. And, for me, all along I have been silenced, and I have chosen, really, to fight a silent battle. This is my resolve. I will do the research even more aggressively now. I will do it more aggressively. I will mentor as many young people as I can. But I have to be very quiet. I have to be diplomatic in the way I fight. I cannot go to the streets with a placard, saying women's voices need to be heard, or no. I have to empower myself, and luckily I have people. I have a support system, and NESVAD is there. Mujeres por Africa is there. There are several other groups that are supporting women. We need to be empowered, to change this narrative. We have to be very smart in our approach, in fighting discrimination, especially in the African context. So I like this saying, let me quote it. It says, pick your battles small enough to win, big enough to matter, and often enough to be relevant. So I want to be careful with the choice of my words, yeah. I would say it's not the best, because I wouldn't say I've had the need to go to the hospital for whatever reasons, yeah. But when I go for surveillances sometimes to collect samples, I go to healthcare centers, I go to hospitals. Like when I did the COVID work, which I published with Annette, we collected samples from a primary healthcare center, and the conditions in the center, or the primary healthcare center, were not the best. At least this was 2 years ago. They were not the best. And I mean, I have been to areas or locations in Nigeria where they are very remote, and you don't find a local primary healthcare center. in those environments. So these people sometimes have to travel, miles, if they have to get to a place where they can have access to health care. So it is a problem, and that is why a lot of people resolve not to go to the hospitals. In my country, if you want to get, quote unquote, the best health care, then it's best to go to a private hospital. It's best to go to a private hospital, but it is very expensive. And you know what the poverty level is like in Nigeria? It is, more than 60% are living in abject poverty, not the middle class. So that is why we have this problem of NTDs. It is a disease that affects the poorest of the poor, and they are the ones who make the chunk of our population. So the burden, the population is a problem. It is overwhelming even on the healthcare system. Now the government also, one, is not putting enough resources into this. It's unfortunately that there is so much fraud in my country. And so the resources that are even allocated are not properly used. They are not managed. Honestly, it's unfortunate, I would say, that I don't think Africans, in my country, let me not speak for the whole of Africa, in my country, that there is research that is focused on a specific group. Yeah? In my country, I think the focus is people cannot even feed. People cannot have access to food. People cannot have access to basic things in life. Water, good water. There are people to this day, there are communities to this day, that if you see their source of water, you will not believe that we are in the 21st century, that people are going through what they are going through. So we don't even do research in that sense. It's Europe and Africa are two completely different worlds, So we are more focused on how we can survive than research. A lot of research that people are doing, or researchers in Africa are doing, is coming from the support from the West. Africa may have some sort of, they may claim, let me not generalize still, but in my country, there's this research, there's this scheme they call the TED Fund. It's the Tertiary Education Research Fund, that researchers in higher institutions are given some amount of money to do research, depending on the research area. But I tell you that amount may not even buy you a -80, an ultra cold freezer. It may not even buy you basic reagents, not to talk of equipment to do serious research. So it's unfortunate when our governments think, okay, this initiative is helping out. Maybe a bit, but for serious impact, for serious health outcomes, no. I'm sorry, but the answer is no. It's just, we're just trying to survive, basically. I wouldn't say we're exactly doing research from the context of research. Whatever research we're doing is coming from support from the West. And the initiatives are usually driven by Westerners, not Africans, because we don't have that kind of funding. We don't have that kind of money to do our own research. No, we don't. So it's for artificial intelligence, it's only recently that I took interest in artificial intelligence because, okay, I'll tell you exactly what happened. So I went for a meeting in Germany, and I met with researchers at the University of Bremen and a group that came from the Mahidol University in Thailand. And I actually have an interest in dengue research because in my country, or in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, whenever anyone has any febrile illness or whenever a patient shows signs of febrile illnesses, the first thing that comes to mind is malaria. So they don't think of any other cause of febrile illness but malaria. Now, we did a study in the northwest of Nigeria, and we found that the prevalence of dengue was quite high. It was quite high. And so we thought that it would be nice to dig deeper, to study or to do a surveillance in other parts of the country. Now, that was how the idea of doing some work in dengue came up. Now, I met with this group in Germany and with friends, colleagues from Mahidol University, who had designed an app, an artificial intelligence app that is used for the prognosis of dengue, and they've successfully used it in Thailand, for prognosis of the disease. And so I thought, okay, why not? I think we can also do the same in Nigeria. And so we now have an app which has been designed for Nigeria, specifically for Nigeria, and we have collected samples from the population, and we're going to, because the app would require certain parameters to be imputed, for the app to give you, the artificial intelligence app to give you a prognosis. So that is where we're at now with the dengue project. We have not, we're still doing analysis, to get those parameters so we can impute in the app, but it seems very promising. Again, here in Spain, I am collaborating with a group called SpotLab. And SpotLab is actually a team of AI experts. And they are basically using artificial intelligence in clinical research and diagnostics. So we recently also submitted a proposal to the Horizon Europe EDCTP3 call. We're proposing the use of an AI-driven microscope for the diagnosis of multiplex parasites, and most of those parasites are parasites that cause neglected tropical diseases. So yes, so these are some of the cross-cutting researches that I'm conducting. So I have collaborations in Spain as well as Germany and Thailand for prognosis or diagnosis of NTDs, basically. My dream is, I would have loved to say I want to change the world, yeah? But I want to contribute my quota, however little, in ameliorating the suffering of people that I have seen firsthand. Not that I was told, but I have seen suffering. I want to do my best. I want to contribute in alleviating the suffering of these neglected people. So that is my objective. And that is why I will do the research even more aggressively. I would say I am managing it well. I would say I'm managing it well. Not that there are no challenges, there are lots of challenges. But somehow I'm managing it well because I have a very solid support system. That's my family, my parents. I still live with my parents, yeah. My parents are my biggest cheerleaders because they keep, urging me to keep going, you're doing the research. Yesterday when I sent them pictures, they were very happy. I wish they had attended the colloquium, or they would be able to attend the documentary, but no. My family is my greatest support system, my brother, my nieces and my nephew. They say Auntie Dada is doing this, she's say Auntie Dada is on TV, Auntie Dada is doing, So for me, this is what I love to go back to. I know that I have a safe place. With all the challenges, I've been bullied, I've faced a lot of challenges, yeah. As a woman, as an African woman, as an African woman researcher, I've faced a lot of challenges. But in the midst of all this, I'm able to go back home. I know I have a safe net. I have a safe haven where I can go back and at least my problems will disappear, So, yes. So somehow I'm able to balance my work life and my personal life and my work life, basically because I have that kind of support. I can imagine if I didn't have that kind of support. Wow. The stress, it could just affect my mental health, because you have all this stress and then you go back home, nobody to speak to, or in fact, sometimes you don't even need to speak to your family about issues. You just go back home and it's a loving, it's a caring environment. You come back. Sometimes up until now, my father would ask me, so how was work today? What did you do? It's the same questions he asked me when I was still growing up. Yeah, he would say, how was school today? What did you do? These days he would ask me, so how was work today? What did you do? There was one time he asked me if there were any challenges, because I came back home really moody, and he asked me what was the problem. And trypanosomiasis is a disease that affects humans and animals. The disease is found in America, which is called the American trypanosomiasis, and then also in Africa, where it is called the African trypanosomiasis. Now in Africa, the disease affects humans as well as animals. And the species that cause the infection in humans are Trypanosoma brucei rhodesiense and Trypanosoma brucei gambiense, while the causative agents in animals are Trypanosoma brucei, Trypanosoma congolense, and Trypanosoma vivax. There are several other species. Now, this disease, if not treated, can lead ultimately to death. I am looking into the roles that these parasites, the Trypanosoma, the mechanism of their survival, in the host, either in the mammalian host or in the insect vector. Now, there's a gene or an enzyme that is called the transialidase, which is responsible for the survival of the parasites. So if you take out transialidase from Trypanosoma, it will not function. Very likely it will die in the host, because what happens is that the cells in the system, in the mammalian system, have what we call sialic acids on their surface. And what sialic acid does is to give protection against the immune system from seeing our cells, our body cells, as foreign. So any foreign object of any foreign agent that comes into the body doesn't have this masking effect by sialic acids. And so the immune system will recognize that foreign object, or that object, as foreign, because it lacks transialidase on its surface. And so it will send macrophages which will phagocytose that foreign object out of the system. And so we don't come down with diseases. But these trypanosomes are very smart. What they do is that they steal sialic acids from our body cells and transfer it to themselves. So they have that masking effect. And then the immune system will not see them as foreign. And so it will not phagocytose them out of the system. But remember that they stole those sialic acids from our body cells, especially the red cells, red blood cells. And so the red blood cells would be left naked, in quotes, without that sialic acid protection. And then the immune system would see those cells as foreign and then phagocytose them from the system. That is why one of the cardinal indicators of African trypanosomiasis is anemia. That masking effect. Now, to come to the vaccine, we've been able to discover that the transialidase is key in the survival of the parasites. And that is how they survive, by stealing sialic acids from the surrounding cells and, transferring it onto themselves. And basically exposing the other cells to the immune systems, which generates macrophages against them, and their phagocytose from circulation. So that particular enzyme or gene, the transialidase gene, what we are trying to do is to develop vaccine, or to use it to develop vaccine candidates, against trypanosoma.